Out of all the shiny magical eyes that we've seen in the Naruto world, most Naruto fans would agree that when it comes to dojutsu that were introduced in the 72 volumes of the Naruto manga, the Rinnegan, that's the one that stands at the top of the mountaintop in terms of all the eyes that we saw Shinobi use, not counting of course Kaguya's Rinne Sharingan, which is a whole nother monster. However, though it's been many years since the Rinnegan was first shown to us way back in the mid 2000s in manga format, when the manga was still in Weekly Shonen Jump, there's still quite a bit about the Rinnegan that Naruto fans they either don't fully know, they don't fully understand, or they don't fully remember, since it's been such a long time since they've either seen or read the Naruto story, which is why in today's newest edition of the Kekkei Genkai Handbook, over here on Naruto Explained, we're going to discuss one of the most powerful Kekkei Genkai in the series, which is the Rinnegan Eye, and we're going to cover more than just the basics of how the eye is acquired or how it works, but we'll also dive into some of the deeper nuances surrounding the dojutsu, so we cover some of the stuff that you won't be aware of. If the extent of your knowledge primarily comes from the 3 Naruto anime, Naruto, Naruto Shippuden, and Boruto Naruto Next Generations, we're also going to be using new updated information that we have on the Rinnegan that comes to us from Boruto 2 Blue Vortex manga, better known as the Boruto time skip manga by fans. So the Rinnegan was first alluded to us way back in Naruto Part 1 when it was revealed to us that there were 3 great dojutsu, with it being said that the Sharingan was a mutation of the Byakugan, but the third eye would never be mentioned again for several years, and we wouldn't even see the eye until the literal last chapter of Naruto Part 1, where we would see Pain gather the Akatsuki, and we saw the initial design idea for the Rinnegan, which looks slightly different than the one that we have that we all know and love today. As the third Naruto databook tells us, the Rinnegan was so rare and so overpowered that those who had the eye, they were either stated to be a god of creation who would bring peace to the world, or they would be a god of destruction who would burn the world to ashes, which is very fitting, as you'll see when we eventually get to the various powers of the Rinnegan, which are both the powers of creation as well as the powers of destruction. In order to get the Rinnegan, it can only be acquired via 3 confirmed methods, one of which is something that a lot of fans still get wrong, which leads to unintentional misunderstanding and misinformation by many. So this first method is to literally be an Otsutsuki. There are members of the clan who are implied to have been born with the Rinnegan. They just always had it. So people like Momoshiki, who had the Rinnegan on his palms, Urashiki, etc. The anime does make a small deviation from the lore here. So in Naruto Shippuden, during a filler arc, you see Hagoromo and Hamura as they grew up as the children of Kaguya, and Hagoromo ended up simultaneously awakening his Mangekyo Sharingan and his Rinnegan, which in the manga that was never the case. Hagoromo just always had the Rinnegan, seemingly forever. Another small change is that Naruto Shippuden animes made is back when it had Kaguya awaken the Rinne Sharingan after eating the chakra fruit, which in both Naruto's manga and in Boruto's manga, the Kaguya who came to Earth, she had both horns and she had the Rinne Sharingan already. However, that leads me to the point that we alluded to earlier, which is the confusion regarding one of the methods that are required to awaken the Rinnegan, which is the way that a non-Otsutsuki can awaken the eye. So if you've been in the community long enough, you probably heard fans say, you awaken the Rinnegan by mixing Uchiha DNA and Senju DNA, which in theory would allow an Uchiha or someone else to awaken the Rinnegan. This was a theory that Madara came up with when he read the stone tablet that was altered by Zetsu, and that Orochimaru and Kabuto each came up with during Orochimaru's obsession with all things the Sage of Six Paths. However, as we would learn directly from the Sage of Six Paths, Hagoromo himself, this was wrong, and by wrong I mean very wrong, and they were nowhere near close to the answer. Hagoromo tells Naruto that in order to get the Rinnegan, a non-Otsutsuki must mix the chakra of a reincarnate of Ashura and a reincarnate of Indra. It has to be both of those chakras specifically. So you can't just go and grab, say, Tobirama and grab, say, Sarada and toss them into a blender, blend them together and get a Rinnegan. It doesn't work that way. And this is why Obito Uchiha never unlocked the Rinnegan in the 18 years after he was given Hashirama's DNA, because he only had one half of the requirement. He needed Madara's DNA in his body as well, which he was missing. When you take this approach, it can take decades to naturally awaken the Rinnegan, which that was the case for Madara after he faked his death via the Uchiha clan's Kenjutsu called Izanami, and he mixed Ashura's chakra with his own chakra. The third and final method for getting a Rinnegan is also one that isn't quite as well known by fans who only watch the anime, which is the Rinnegan can be directly given to you by the Sage of Six Paths himself, which is what he did with Sasuke according to the 4th Naruto databook, which was released after Naruto's manga ended and the official guidebook for volumes 44 through 72 of Naruto. So while Sasuke did receive enhanced Hashirama cells from Kabuto after Madara stabbed Sasuke to try and kill him, and Sasuke did possess Angel's chakra by being his reincarnation, it would have normally taken decades for him to awaken the eye, yet Hagoromo provided Sasuke with the Rinnegan as a second additional power-up, which as a reminder, the first power-up he got was the seal of one half of Hagoromo's chakra that was placed on Sasuke's hand. Due to Sasuke getting both the seal and the Rinnegan at the same time, much like Naruto received the seal and got 2 additional power-ups in the form of Six Paths Sage Mode, 1 power, and Six Paths Power, another power. This led to an incorrect confusion by a decent number of fans who believed that the seals were needed for each of these powers, and that Naruto got cheated after they lost their seals since Sasuke kept the Rinnegan, which that's not true. The Rinnegan and the Yin seal, they are 2 different powers, just as Six Paths Sage Mode, Six Paths Power, and the Six Paths Yang seal are 3 different powers to Naruto. So the reason why Sasuke's Rinnegan is so different from someone like Madara, it goes back to how you get the eye. Madara, he forced the awakening by mixing Ashura and Angel's chakra, which is why you have the basic Rinnegan pattern with no Tomo. But Sasuke's Rinnegan, it was given to him by Hagoromo directly, which is why Sasuke's Rinnegan has Tomo inside of his Sharingan eye, 3 on the 2 innermost Rinnegan rings for a total of 6 Tomo, which allows Sasuke to retain the powers of both the Sharingan and the Mangekyo Sharingan, which could be used out of that eye. Hence, we saw him use Amaterasu in Naruto chapter 682 and Sharingan Genjutsu in Naruto chapter 692, whereas Madara had to switch his Rinnegan on and off depending on which powers he needed to use. This is also why you see Sasuke and Naruto Gaiden, the 7th Hokage in the Scarlet Spring. Right after Sasuke leaves Kaguya's dimension and he is attacked by one of the Shin clones, Sasuke's Rinnegan loses the Tomo in his eyes. With the Boruto anime, it does a really good job of showing the scene, slowing it down so you see the Tomo disappear in real time, because the Tomo in the eyes, they're linked to Sasuke's chakra. While he can't turn his Rinnegan off, he can lose those Tomo in his eyes if his chakra drops too low. In Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, the sequel manga to Boruto Naruto Next Generations, there has been what appears to be a 4th way to receive the Rinnegan, which is that some of the claw grimes that were created by Code's chakra when he broke up the body of the Ten Tails using his Karma seal, some of them have the Rinnegan, like the one who attacked Kawaki during Code's invasion of the Hidden Leaf Village, and each of the awakened Shinju led by Jura, they have Rinnegan. But you can argue this also goes more in line with what you saw with Suzuki clan members who were just born with the eye, just as some of the Ten Tails creations have the eye upon the creation as well, and they come directly from the Ten Tails, which also has a Rinnegan. Now, the Rinnegan, it comes with a few unique advantages as well as, most importantly, some disadvantages that don't get mentioned enough by fans, which at times can lead to some fans calling certain things a plot hole when it's not literally a plot hole. The first is that if a person naturally awakens their Rinnegan, or their Rinnegan is given to them by Hagoromo, they get a massive boost in power. But one of the drawbacks to this is, just as Obito says when he's trying to get Sakura to destroy Madara's Rinnegan, the power increase that the Rinnegan gives, it is so insane that even Obito, for as strong as he was and in possession of Hashirama cells, which gives another boost in power, as well as stamina increases, even Obito struggled to use just one Rinnegan. This is due to the eye not belonging to someone like Obito, but even Nagato, someone who had the massive chakra reserves and the life force of the Uzumaki clan, even Nagato couldn't bring out the full power of the Rinnegan, only being able to use the basic 6 Rinnegan powers that every Rinnegan user gets. Those who naturally awaken the Rinnegan, they also get other advantages like being able to see the chakra flow through the body like the Sharingan and the Byakugan, but the eye, it can also see through barriers, and it allows the user to not only fully read the stone tablet left behind by the Sage's 6 paths, but it gives the user immediate mastery of all 5 changes in chakra nature, though as we see with Nagato when he awakened Madara's Rinnegan, while Nagato's mastery wasn't immediate, he did however learn the 5 basic chakra natures at a massively accelerated speed, which shook Jiraiya, because as we're told around Naruto chapter 316, it usually takes shinobi several years of change in chakra nature drill training just to learn 1 change in chakra nature. That's why there aren't many shinobi who know all 5 chakra natures, yet the Rinnegan is one of 2 confirmed cheat codes that give you instant mastery, the other one being the possession of 6 paths power, which is what you gain when you become a 10-tails Jinchuriki like Madara and Obito, and later on Naruto before he met Hagoromo, when Obito sealed the remaining Biju chakra into Naruto. The Rinnegan, it does come with 6 basic powers that every Rinnegan user gets, and they are commonly referred to as the 6 paths of pain jutsu by fans, because Nagato was the one who we saw the Rinnegan powers get used by so easily and so often that it's usually him who's associated with those powers when people think of them. So we're going to run through those very quickly since you likely know how they work. The Deva Path allows the user to use the push and pull by using chakra, but it can also perform Chibaku Tensei, which creates a giant meter that can trap a target inside of it. And as we all saw with Nagato, while it can't contain most people, Nagato, he did struggle to contain the 8-tails version of Naruto in the pain arc, and it absolutely pushed him to his limits, and Kurama broke out of it. And in Boruto's anime, Sasuke, he tried and failed to trap Momoshiki inside of it, with Momoshiki easily breaking out of it mere seconds after the jutsu was completed, and Sasuke thought that they won. With all 3 of these jutsu that the Deva Path can perform, push, pull, and Chibaku Tensei, they all have one glaring weakness, which is that they can be physically resisted. But the problem, of course, is that most people, they aren't strong enough, or they don't have the means required to resist the powers, let alone overpower them. Very fitting for a power that comes from an eye that was deemed to be the greatest of the 3 great dojutsu. The second power, that's going to be the Astra Path, which allows the user to make weapons ranging from missiles to laser guns to chainsaw limbs out of their body. The human path allows the user to rip out the soul of whoever they touch, which as we saw with Naruto when he fought Edo Nagato, if 2 people are somewhat relative to each other, then the extraction, it can be physically fought against, very similar to how the Reaper Death Seal can be physically resisted. The animal path, it allows the user to summon giant animals onto the battlefield, and they can spam multiple summons simultaneously. The Predator path allows the user to absorb any chakra by touching them, like we see when Sasuke absorbs Naruto's chakra in their final battle, or through touching their ninjutsu as it's used, like we see when Jiraiya went into Sage mode and tried to use a Rasengan on the Predator path, only it got absorbed. The Naraka path, it allows the user to summon the King of Hell to reverse damage done to a person, or carry out interrogation, which when a lie is told during the interrogation, it results in the King of Hell ripping out the tongues of the liar and killing them on sight. The Rinnegan also allows the user to use the art of the Rinne Rebirth, which can bring back to life those who have died, but doing so comes at the expense of the user's life. Now, let's clear up another misconception here. So, while Nagato and Konan did originally say back in the pain arc that the power, it was linked to chakra reserves, this was later changed in the 4th Great Ninja War, and is later backed up in the 4th Naruto databook, which to further explain how this power works, I'm going to refer you to the video I have titled The True Reason the Rinne Rebirth Kills You, which I'll leave linked in the description box. The Rinnegan also allows a user to combine the usage of chakra rods to get slammed into the corpses of dead bodies, which allows the user to control them. Each corpse with their own Rinnegan is able to walk around freely as they're controlled, and each has a shared vision, and the user has access to everything that is seen. Those who have awakened their own Rinnegan, they also have their own unique powers, very similar to how the Mangekyo Sharingan for each user has its own special powers for each eye. So Sasuke can use Amena Tejikar to swap places with any object or jutsu or person that is within the range of his jutsu, and he doesn't have to be looking at the thing that he switches with. Sasuke just needs to be aware of the location of what he's switching with. He doesn't have to physically see it. The other Rinnegan power allows him to open up portals to Kaguya's dimensions, which comes at an enormous price of chakra that many fans downplay and do not realize, which I go over in extensive detail in Why Sasuke's Always Out of Chakra, a video I'll leave linked in the description box too. Madara's Rinnegan allows him to use a jutsu called Limbo, which allows him to create clones clones of himself that operates differently than shadow clones, which is another misconception people have. They think these are like shadow clones. So whereas shadow clones can split chakra evenly amongst the user and the number of clones that they make. So say if you make 3 shadow clones, then your chakra split 4 ways. So 100% chakra is now 25% chakra for each clone in yourself. The limbo clones, they are as strong as the original body. They're all 100% of Madara's power. To further add to how broken they are, they cannot be touched unless someone is in possession of 6-pass chakra, and they can only be sensed by someone who has 6-pass sage mode. So Naruto's 6-pass sage mode is what he uses when he kicks away the truth-seeking orb to save Might Guy. This is before he uses the chakra cloak, which the chakra cloak is him combining 6-pass sage mode with 6-pass power, which is the power of the 9 Biju. The limbo clones, they can only be seen by someone who has a Rinnegan, which is what makes them one of the most broken powers in the series itself. The only question mark about limbo is whether or not Otsutsuki can see them or touch them, which has never been confirmed, but it is very likely the case. Momoshiki's Rinnegan power allows him to absorb chakra and fire it back multiple times stronger with his right Rinnegan, and with his left Rinnegan, he can directly change the properties of people and chakra into objects like the chakra pills and the chakra fruits we see him eating. Urashiki's Rinnegan, it allows him to travel through dimensions with his red Rinnegan, but his blue Rinnegan allows him to travel back and forward in time several moments, which allows him to see the future attacks that are used against him, come back to the prior moment of time and adjust, but any damage he takes in the future, it stays with him. As shown when he inhaled way too many of Jiraiya's toxins when Jiraiya figured out Urashiki's Rinnegan powers because the guy was using them too much and he played around with Naruto, Jiraiya, and Boruto instead of killing them right away. That is probably the most broken Rinnegan power that was wasted on a total idiot. Now, Jura, the first major antagonist of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex manga, he can also use his Rinnegan to shoot off Biju Dama from his Rinnegan, and he can change the size, so he can make them large Biju Dama, and he can also compress them down from being giant nukes to being the size of a bullet, which can be fired off with insane accuracy from several dozens of miles outside the village. He's able to snipe Boruto from a distance despite Boruto being in the middle of the Leaf Village. So now here's where we go even further. So you may or may not know that the Rinnegan is based on Samsara, which with each of the basic Rinnegan powers from the animal path to the Deva path, they draw their inspiration from Sansaric realms of reincarnation, also known as the desire realms or the 6 planes or the 6 paths of suffering or the 6 domains. So the deity domain, it inspired the Deva path. Hence, the Deva path has a god complex. The Ashra path was inspired by a jealous god, which is why the Ashra path is able to make various weapons, because just as a jealous person has to be at the center of attention, has to be number one or whatever, these various weapons allow the user to not be one-up by anyone because they can constantly adapt. The human domain inspired the human path, hence the soul extraction power of the human path itself. The animal path, it was inspired by the animal domain. The Preta path is inspired by the Preta domain because the Preta domain is also known as the hungry ghost domain, just as the Preta path, each chakra that it absorbed from jutsu in people, and was the path that absorbed too much of the sage energy and turned into a statue because it's a pun on the hungry ghost domain. The Naraka path, it is inspired by the hell domain, which is also called the Naraka domain. Hence the Naraka path, it can summon the king of hell. However, let's take it a step further. Let's go even deeper here. So the Rinnegan, in particular, the pattern that you have. So when you dig into Asian traditions and writings, it is a symbolic representation of perception and enlightenment, which is very fitting given the whole angle of Buddhism being associated with reaching nirvana / enlightenment. The eyes of the Rinnegan, they reflect this as being the ultimate dojutsu of the 3 great dojutsu because they allow the user to see and understand all aspects of the world itself, from life, death, reality, and illusion. Hence the powers of the Rinnegan. They range from powers that can change reality, like the Chibaku Tensei, to the powers that can kill, like the Ashra Path weapons, to the human path, which it can end life by ripping out souls, to illusions like the King of Hell, which can only be seen by the user and the target of the jutsu. To learn more about the unique Rinnegan powers, you want to click here on the right for the Every Rinnegan Jutsu Explained video, which goes into extensive detail on every Rinnegan Rinnegan jutsu up until the end of Boruto Part 1. And over here on the left, we have a video from my Anime Explained channel where we discuss other non-Naruto content. So click on that video if you want to see me talk about other anime content in a way very similar to this one.